For decades, Boeing was untouchable. American engineering dominated the skies, and every major airline trusted one name above all others. Europe, divided and economically fragile, wasn't supposed to compete, let alone win. But in the 1970s, a bold experiment emerged. A multinational aircraft built by political rivals who decided to unite against a common giant. Its name was the Airbus A300. What happened next shocked the aviation industry. This underdog didn't just enter the market, it exposed Boeing's blind spot, changed airline economics forever, and quietly rewrote the rules of global aviation. And just when Airbus started winning, everything changed. In the late 1960s, the commercial aviation industry looked almost like a monopoly. Boeing had already reshaped air travel with the 707, helping launch the jet age. Then came the 747, the queen of the skies, a symbol of American industrial power. Alongside Boeing stood McDonnell Douglas and Lockheed. Together, U.S. manufacturers controlled nearly the entire global market for large commercial aircraft. Europe, by contrast, was fragmented. France had Sud Aviation, Germany had Messerschmitt Böckhoff Blohm, the UK had Hawker Siddeley. All had technical expertise, but none had the scale or financial muscle to challenge Boeing alone. Worse, they were competing against each other for shrinking market share. So European governments made a radical decision. Instead of fighting separately, they would build together. In 1970, Airbus Industry was formally created as a multinational consortium. It wasn't a typical company, it was a political and industrial alliance. France and West Germany led the effort, with the UK contributing wing technology. Many in Washington dismissed it as a state-backed experiment that would collapse under bureaucracy and inefficiency. Then Airbus revealed its first aircraft, the A300. On paper, it looked unconventional, even risky. The A300 was the world's first twin-engine wide-body jet. At the time, long-haul aircraft typically had 3 or 4 engines. Airlines believed more engines meant greater safety, especially for transoceanic routes. Boeing's 747 had 4, the DC-10 had 3. 2 engines on a wide body seemed like a gamble, but Airbus engineers saw something others didn't. Airlines weren't just growing, they were facing rising costs. Fuel prices were volatile, profit margins were thin. Many high-density routes didn't require a massive 747. They needed something efficient, flexible, and cheaper to operate. The A300 was designed for exactly that niche, medium-haul routes with heavy passenger demand. 2 engines meant lower fuel burn, lower maintenance costs, smaller crews, better economics. There was just one problem: no one was ordering it. Airlines were hesitant to trust a brand new European consortium with no track record. Early production lines were quiet. Some insiders feared Airbus would collapse before delivering its first major breakthrough. By the mid-1970s, Airbus had survived its most dangerous phase. The A300 was flying. Fuel efficiency was proving real. Orders were slowly increasing. But Boeing still didn't see the full picture. At the time, Boeing's strategic focus was clear: go bigger, go farther, dominate long-haul travel. The 747 was the crown jewel. Massive capacity, intercontinental range, unmatched prestige. It symbolized scale, and scale meant power. Airbus wasn't trying to beat the 747. It was targeting something Boeing underestimated: dense regional and medium-haul routes. Airlines were discovering that many of their most profitable routes weren't ultra-long international flights. They were high-traffic connections between major hubs, routes that didn't need 4 engines or extreme range. The A300 fit that niche perfectly. 2 engines dramatically reduced fuel burn. Maintenance costs dropped, turnaround times improved. Airlines could carry wide-body passenger volumes without paying jumbo jet operating expenses. And then the oil shocks of the 1970s changed everything. Fuel prices surged. Suddenly, efficiency wasn't optional. It was survival. Aircraft that once seemed safe because of extra engines now looked expensive, heavy, inefficient. Airbus had unintentionally positioned itself for the future. Even more importantly, the A300 helped push regulatory authorities to rethink twin-engine safety rules. Over time, extended-range twin-engine operations, later known as ETOPS, became more accepted. This allowed twin-engine aircraft to fly longer routes over oceans safely. That shift would redefine the entire industry. Ironically, Boeing would later embrace the very model Airbus had pioneered. highly efficient twin-engine wide bodies, with aircraft like the 767 and decades later, the 777 and 787. But in the early years, Boeing's internal momentum was focused elsewhere. Development cycles were long, investments were tied to existing philosophies. Airbus, as the outsider, had flexibility. It wasn't defending a legacy, it was building a new strategy from scratch. The A300 wasn't just a successful aircraft, it was proof that market assumptions could be wrong, that smaller, smarter, and more efficient could beat bigger and more powerful. And that realization quietly shifted the balance of power in global aviation. By the 1980s, Airbus was no longer fighting for survival. The A300 had proven its concept. Orders were growing, airlines were seeing real savings. But the true transformation of Airbus wasn't just about one aircraft, it was about what came next. Airbus understood something critical. Winning once wasn't enough. To compete with Boeing long-term, it needed a full product family. That realization led to the launch of the A320 program. Unlike the A300, the A320 wasn't just efficient, it was revolutionary. It became the first commercial aircraft to introduce full digital fly-by-wire controls. Instead of traditional mechanical linkages between the pilot's controls and the aircraft's surfaces, computers translated pilot inputs into electronic signals. This allowed for optimized flight envelopes, weight savings, and enhanced safety protections. Many airlines were cautious. New technology meant training costs and adaptation. But Airbus made another strategic move that Boeing underestimated. It designed a common cockpit philosophy. Pilots trained on the A320 could transition more easily to other Airbus aircraft. Controls, displays, and procedures were standardized. That meant lower retraining costs and greater fleet flexibility for airlines. This was more than engineering, it was ecosystem thinking. Airbus wasn't selling planes anymore. It was selling operational efficiency across fleets. Meanwhile, Airbus's multinational production model, wings in the UK, fuselage sections in Germany, assembly in France, created political alignment across Europe. Governments backed orders, financing support strengthened credibility, aviation had become strategic infrastructure, the rivalry with Boeing intensified. By the 1990s, Airbus was no longer the underdog. It was capturing serious market share in the narrow-body segment, historically Boeing's stronghold. Airlines now had a credible alternative, and competition began driving pricing pressure, innovation cycles, and global trade disputes. What started as a fragile political experiment had evolved into a fully integrated aerospace giant. The A300 had opened the door. The A320 proved Airbus could lead. And now, for the first time in modern aviation history, Boeing faced something it hadn't dealt with in decades, a rival that wasn't going away. By the early 2000s, Airbus and Boeing stood as equals. What began as a desperate European experiment had transformed into a global aerospace powerhouse. The A300 had cracked the door open. The A320 family kicked it wide. Market share shifted, pricing power balanced, innovation accelerated. But then the industry entered a new era. Competition was no longer just about aircraft performance. It became about supply chains, geopolitical alliances, trade disputes, and industrial resilience. The Airbus-Boeing rivalry turned into a strategic battle backed by governments on both sides of the Atlantic. Crises reshaped the landscape. Financial shocks, production failures, safety controversies, and global disruptions that tested both manufacturers. And suddenly, dominance wasn't guaranteed for anyone. The A300 didn't just outsmart Boeing in a single market segment. It proved that assumptions can be broken, that efficiency can beat size, that collaboration can challenge giants. Most importantly, it changed how aviation competes. Today, every new aircraft program, every order announcement, every trade negotiation carries echoes of that first bold European gamble. Because once Airbus proved it could win, the rules of the sky were never the same again.